thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your California Music Educator Conference. You people are my people. I live up here in Weed, California. Well, out in the greater Weed area, actually, 5 miles outside of Weed, in my little cabin in the woods, which is pretty much where I've spent the last 6 months, holed up with COVID. And it's getting to feel, the walls are starting to feel a little smaller, and I think they will even more as winter sets in. But we're all coping the best we can. These virtual conferences are difficult, and I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, this ain't going to go glitch-free. This boomer's doing the best he can, but these things are something else. Still, I remember that Eleanor Roosevelt said that every day you ought to do something that scares you to death. So here am I, trying to make you a virtual classroom. And I know you people are doing this like 8 hours a day, every day. So I am sympathetic to you, to say the very least. You know, it's like I'd like to start off by saying something really encouraging and how this is okay, this can be fun and great. But the truth is, my opinion is that this COVID thing and teaching virtually and all of this, it kind of stinks. I hate to break it to you. I guess you probably all know that already, but to me, it takes so much of the best part of what teaching is all about kind of out of the equation. I mean, being together with your students and your peers and really making music together. It would be hard. I would be hard pressed on how do you talk a new music ed person to going into teaching at all when all of the fun stuff is gone. Except that, you know, I think we're going to get through this and eventually we'll be back to teaching in some form like we used to, hopefully face-to-face with our students and peers and making music together again. And in the meantime, you're the best in the world at making it happen and making something great and positive happen as best as possible in these situations. Creative thinking is what we're all about in music industry. I mean, I think we are used to having to think out of the box. And we need to, because this would be a perfect time for people to look at music and music education and say, okay, well, maybe it's time it's past and it's time to move on. And you and I know that we can't do that. I mean, that would be a terrible loss to our world, and particularly your own community. So a couple of more encouraging quotes. How about that? To start the day. The first one is by Nicholas Krauss from a book called The History of Love, which I really love this quote. It's sort of esoteric, but it goes like this. From time to time, when a piece of music no one has ever written, or a painting no one has ever painted, or something else impossible to predict, fathom, or yet describe takes place, a new feeling enters the world. And for the millionth time in the history of feeling, the heart surges and absorbs the impact. I think that's what you do every time you teach your choir, band, orchestra, whoever, to make some music together. Here's another quote, not nearly as esoteric. Yeah, well, I've got a dream too, but it's about singing and dancing and making people happy. That's the kind of dream that gets better the more people you share it with. And well, I found a whole bunch of friends who have the same dream, and that kind of makes us like a family. Kermit the Frog. Anyway, hey, I thought today we could just talk and visit like this, because we ought to do a little bit of dancing just to bring our spirits out. And plus, you're probably doing a lot of sitting around watching these kind of workshops. So how about a little Pink Zebra? If you don't know this song, it just is a great one for COVID because it'll make you so happy. And I'm going to teach you a couple moves because once you got them, you got the whole dance move down. Okay, the song is Be Happy. Just be happy, happy. And you only need to know a couple of things, like clap your hands off to the side. And you got to do the floss, which no music teacher can do because they try to count it out. 1, 2, 3, 1. Just go for it. Let's do the dance. We're going to clap your hands and just be happy. Do the dance now and just be happy. And then you're going to put your shoulders down like this. 4, 5. I can see all the band directors out there just going, this guy is out of his mind. Okay, we got that. All right, so we get, let's get just these, just snapping our fingers side to side. Little index fingers. Jazz hands. Can't go too long without that. And burst, and here's that chorus I just taught you. Clap your hands now and just be happy. Do the dance now and just be happy. La-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da. Hey, now we're going to do the axle. Axle is like you take your hand and like you're drawing a string through there. You draw it, and twice this way. 1. And I like this move because you can sort of do it at your own level of getting into it. It's like some kids will be, and others of us can just be. The rest of the song, you just have to follow along with me. Here it is, Pink Zebras, Just Be Happy. Hope you can hear it.
Sing a favorite song and
come on, it's not all bad.
Along. We can brighten every day with the things we do and say. Just be happy, happy. Just be happy, happy. La di da di da di da. La di da di da di da. Just be happy, happy. Just be happy, happy. La di da di da di da di da. So clap your hands now and just be happy. Do a dance now and just be happy. Whoa.
Excellent.
Make a smile now and just be happy. Laugh a while now and just be happy. Whoa.
Second verse, same as the first.
Let the music play and your worries wash away. Such a simple way to see how the world was meant to be. Hey, just be happy, happy. Just be happy, happy. La di da di da di da. La di da di da di da. Just be happy, happy. Just be happy, happy. La di da di da di da di da. Clap your hands now and just be happy. Do a dance now and just be happy. So make a smile now and just be happy. Laugh around now and just be happy. Every chance along the way, and every moment through the day, make a choice to hear your voice reach out and say, okay, let's play.
It ain't over.
Just be happy, happy. Just be happy, happy. La-di-da-di-da-di-da. La-di-da-di-da-di-da. Just be happy, happy. Just be happy, happy. La-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. Clap your hands now and just be happy. Do a dance now and just be happy. And make a smile now and just be happy. Laugh around now and just be happy.
Now just take that. You're done now, you are. Double Tuesday. And nobody got hurt. Well, maybe. Thank you. Thanks for giving it a whirl there. It's sort of funny. I got this, I was doing that with a bunch of kids a few years ago, and this one little boy, fourth graders, I think it was, he looked at me and go, after I just told him, you know how you get all excited and you have to do it like twice as big as the kids do it, so you hope to get some reaction out of them. And this little kid, after I'd shown him whole dance, I said, okay, now it's your turn. This little boy looks at me and goes, why would I want to do that? And I thought, well, there you go. I guess my answer is that if you could, why wouldn't you want to do that? I mean, there are so many people in the world who could not get up and do the axle or the floss or anything close to it, or just have never been given that opportunity. And I think getting kids going and physically active, and no matter what it looks like in the end, is it's just worth the risk, and worth you taking a risk to get out there and try it with them. I always tell kids like that, I use an example of a little girl I had in a workshop about, oh man, 20 years ago or so. I was one of these big workshops. I think Mac Huff and I were doing it together, like 500 kids for a Thursday night, Friday, and all day Saturday. And you know how these things are, like an all-county chorus, an all-state choir, that kind of thing. You work really, really hard, and then you have a big concert at the end of it. Well, this one we were singing and dancing during the concert. And I'll never forget, after the first night of a rehearsal, this little tug on my sleeve, and I looked down to see this little girl, and they had name tags on, a little blonde-haired girl, her name was Michelle. And she looked up at me, and she was real nervous. Oh yeah, one more thing. She had those crutches on her arms, those sort of silver kind of crutches that are there for your whole life. And she was nervous, and she talked really, really fast. She said, "Oh, Mr. Jacobson, obviously you can see that I can't do all the dances like everybody else can do, but but I am going to be here tomorrow and all day Friday and all day Saturday, and I really am a good singer, you know." And I was sort of mad at myself because, it's just a bunch of kids. I didn't notice too much one from another. They all were up there doing their thing. And so then I start talking really fast too and start worrying about, oh, okay. And I start going, oh, Michelle, it doesn't matter if you do everything like everybody else does. You just do the best you can and get up there and it doesn't matter what it looks like. Just do the best you can. And you really are a good singer. Well, so the next day, the kids come. It's all day Friday, and sometimes I'd say to the kids, "Everybody get up on stage," and they'd all charge up there, and here would come Michelle, slowly moving along. Or I would say, "Everybody lift your hand up in the air," and they'd all lift their hand up in the air, and then Michelle would slowly lift hers up too. And but she was there all day Friday and all day Saturday, and on Saturday night when she put on her long white dress, she was a dancer. So when I talk to a little guy like that who looks up at me and says, "Why would I want to do that?" my answer is, think of all the people like Michelle who would love to. And you are blessed with this health and wealth to be able to do that. And it's a beautiful way to express yourself. As silly as it might look sometimes, I've gotten all over that. You can't worry about it. Back in my double dream hands day, if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. But it's, one of these kind of phenomenons that happen that I put these videos up on YouTube and then people dance along with them. It's supposed to be, kids most of the time. But this one particularly went viral and everybody was watching it. And some people were having a lot of fun with it. Some people were making fun of it. And, when it first came out, my initial response was, I've got to respond to all these people who are making comments, and especially the ones that used naughty language. And hey, you guys, kids are watching this, watch your language. And a lot of it was sort of, in the beginning, was kind of, I suppose, derogatory towards me. It was like, who is this guy and what is this about? And much worse than that. And I was sort of taken aback. I had never considered that what I did was kind of odd. Getting in my cabin and dancing along with a mysterious audience out there. And people would write really funny things. Like I'm yelling out the directions and I would go, point over there. And they'd all go, point over where? Or I would go, reach your hands to the audience. And some guy goes, he thinks there's an audience out there. And so I was chagrined at the beginning and sometimes almost embarrassed. I thought, oh my gosh, my mother's going to go on a witness protection program. But after a while, it kind of flipped, and all the comments on YouTube and all these other places, oh, there goes the phone. Nobody calls me. Anyway, everybody would, after a while, the comments kind of switched. And people would, my music teacher friends and things started defending me and saying, hey, do you know what this really is? This is trying to get kids up and moving and feeling music and enjoying this whole experience. And so, and yes, of course, when you teach, sometimes you are over animated and you're, bigger than life so that you can get the most out of these. If you can get 50% back from your students, you're thrilled, right? And then you put it on a screen this big. Yeah, it looks a little wild once in a while. I'm sure you're going through this yourself with this online teaching. Some of you are having to do that. You're working so hard just to get a response out of these kids who are probably laying on their bed or, half asleep, or if they posted a picture of themselves trying to make you think that they're actually sitting there. I've heard all the tricks. Anyway, at that point I said, you know what? Yeah, you're right. This is what I do. And it may look silly out of context, but I can't be bothered with that. In the end, I know this is good for kids. And so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to go do it. I think this is a tool that we can use to make kids better citizens, better musicians. And so it's what I do. It's what you do. in your own way. Maybe not the same way as I do, but in some way. There's a great poem that I carry around in my briefcase or in my saddlebag or whatever I'm traveling around with. It's not long, but it's by this woman named Anne Weems. And I love it. I think it capsulizes what we are meant to do. It's called Greenless Child. I put it up here so I could just read it to you. It goes, I watched her go uncelebrated into the 2nd grade. A greenless child, gray among the orange and yellow, attached too much to corners and to other people's sunshine. She colors the rainbows brown and leaves balloons unopened in their packages. Oh, who will touch this greenless child? Who will plant alleluias in her heart and send her dancing into all the colors of God? Or will she be left like an unwrapped package on the kitchen table, too dull for anyone to take the trouble? Does God think that we're her keeper? I love that. Again, it's Greenless Child by Anne Weems. So if you want to look it up and post it up someplace, you can do that. And we need to add, you and I, you music teachers, we art teachers, we add the color to kids' lives, to the community's lives. And it's really, really important. This guy, so I'm teaching in China. My brother was superintendent of schools in Shanghai, China. And so I went and did a little tour over there and did some teaching and then went on to Taiwan and taught in some schools over there. Just, artists in residence for a few days. But one day I was working with a bunch of 3rd graders and their teacher had them all write me letters afterwards. Just thanking me for the day. But, their first language was not English. So it was, they were writing to me, and they're practicing, believe it or not, 3rd grade, practicing cursive writing. You can see this is his cursive writing. And so she gave me a copy of one letter that a 3rd grade boy wrote after I had worked with them for a couple of hours or something. She said, today I met Mr. Jacobson. He is so kindness and fun. Mr. Jacobson gave energy. Also, he gave laugh and a little exercise. I learned the dancing. I don't know how to call it, just fun. First, I thought, he's so childish, because to teach dancing, but it looks like so silly. However, after 10 minutes, I also play the dancing. It's like magic. My body, it can't stop. I can't control my body. Anyway, I just get fun. And look how the more excited he gets, the bigger the print gets, the bigger his writing gets. Anyway, I carry that around in my Mickey Mouse folder here like that to once again just encourage me when I think, oh boy, I don't know if we can do this again. Anyway, I absolutely love it. And so today I called this session Own It. Because I think the challenges that were put in front of us as music educators are something that we need to own now, and in this day, and justify our programs and all of that. I love the sound of children singing. Alone Together, Raucous, or Sublime. I think they just offer a sound that melts the hearts of the world and can soften even the world's most cantankerous. And don't you think in our world right now, we need that, perhaps now more than ever? But children's voices are so fleeting. They're here for a time, and then that's it. They're gone forever. And so to me, the song from a child, when shared with the world, it just rivals the meadowlark. I mean, it surpasses the wren. It's a gift that everybody who's outgrown it. But sometimes we need to remind those people, I think, who have outgrown it. We need to demonstrate it, because you can't hear the sound of children singing and not fail to think that their world is worth preserving. Think of all the other challenges that we have to put up with in our world. I mean, if you hear a child singing, you got to think these serious issues that everybody's dealing with now as adults are worth preserving. And you can't love a child and not encourage them to find their voice in their own song. It's a sound you and I love. It's the sound of children singing. But where does this start? To me, it's not with a choir or thousands of people, or even an orchestra of like gifted prodigies. It's not by mistake or happenstance that this starts. It's not by edict or proclamation. Indeed, it is started somewhere in the classroom or in a no-purpose room. It started because somewhere in this room, some teacher stood up with a baton or a basket of boom whackers and dedicated their heart and talent to teaching. And they teach something they love, something called music. You make it happen. Even in this challenging time in the world, children need singing and playing, and they get it because of teachers like you. In January of this year, I was in Africa, South Africa, and Namibia, and Botswana. I got back, believe it or not, March 3rd, just before everything closed down. And I was talking to a teacher who taught elderly gentlemen in Soweto that had taught during apartheid in South Africa. And he said, he was telling me that he had on his desk, there were just times where they would go weeks without getting paid at all. They didn't have any materials, but he would walk, he had a little thing on his desk facing him that he would walk behind his desk and sometimes look at it when he thought he could not go on. And the sign just said, "Teach this day as never before." And then he would turn around and see those students who deserve it, who have done nothing to not deserve it. And he would own it and just say, yep, this is what I'm here for. And I think we need to, our biggest challenge during this time, during this pandemic and all around it, till we can get back to our classroom, we have to own it, own this responsibility. Back when I was in China, again, teaching, I heard this statistic, and it was that there are more honor students in China than there are students in America. Just think about that for a minute. More honor students than we have students total. So, to me, in a competitive world, in a global world, in order for us to be players in that world as citizens and as a country, we have to we can't do it by sheer numbers. We have to do it by creativity. And where do you learn creativity better than in music and other arts classrooms? Thinking of outside the box, again, like you are all having to do right now. Thinking outside the box and how are we going to solve these difficult problems in a time like this? And I think that by keeping the arts and music forefront in education, that will keep us competitive with people who are good test takers. And I think that, if nothing else, it is a justification for what we do. Here's my new mantra for life, because I believe that in the end, we protect what we love. We love what we know, and we will understand only what we have been taught. Or in other words, in the end, we will protect only what we love. We will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we have been taught. I think that goes along with what we're talking about with teaching music. And we have to teach them the love of it, teach them creativity, lead them to it. They can't find it themselves. We need to be the ones that bring it to it. So then the other sort of, there's a word, another thing I think, we don't say thank you enough to people. People like you who are making this happen one way or another. I do know a lot of retired music teachers who took this year to take advantage of it, and I don't blame them. It's a whole nother world. But those of you who are still there and hanging in there and doing the best you can, thank you. And that's why the name of this article that I was going to do today for you, this little program, is another two-word phrase, which is own it. What does that really mean? I think it means, I have this friend who's a college professor, and he was teaching a class on innovation. And in this college class this was, at the end of the first day, he asked all the students to give themselves a grade. Grade themselves on your participation, your role in the class. Just give yourself a grade. And he told them that at the end of the class, at the end of the year, if you just showed up, you'll get a C. Well, of course, the next day, most of the guys and gals came back, and he asked, well, which grade? And most of them gave themselves A's and B's. And he said, really? Because much to their dismay, he gave almost all of them C's or below. And when one kid said, really? I mean, I think I deserved an A in this class. And the professor had to look at him and said, well, did you really think that was the very best you could do in the class? The very best. Because an A would be, you can't do any better than that. Well, the kid had to think about it then and thought, well, maybe I could have done a little bit better in some areas. And the professor said, well, then own that. It's not bad on you, but own this position, own your own sense of participation, own your own sense of quality, and and the difference between mediocrity and excellence. Own that. So I think as they went on, the kid went away, and as they went on during the year, the kids really could understand, when they did a good job, when they could have done better, by better preparation or just better participation or whatever it might be. I think they got the idea of owning that. My brother Steve was a fine not a music educator, an educator though, in high school in Wisconsin. He always used to tell his kids, look, in the end, you grade your own paper. You know how well you did it. At the end of your life, nobody else is going to grade the life that you lived. You'll be able to do it and do it more accurately than everybody else. So I would say to them, those kids, own your grade and own that position. And so I say to my teacher friends, we need to own it too. We need to own it. When we people who teach music to children, who needs to own it? We who struggles juggling schedules and priority issues with our professions, our friends, and our family. And we need to, when we own it, when we get up every morning and charge off to our jobs, sometimes excited and sometimes not so much so. We need to own it when we might wonder if this is a place that we're placed on this planet to do, especially when our chosen profession is often seen as superfluous or expendable or even maligned. Do we own it? You bet we do. We own it when we discover that early musical training in children develops their brain in the important areas of reasoning and language. We own it when we recognize that in teaching music, we are enhancing a child's ability to perceive the world more accurately and to form mental pictures of things. We own it when we understand that students of the arts learn to think creatively and solve problems more resourcefully. We own it when we demonstrate to people that the students of music do better in standardized tests. We own it when we understand that studying music makes students more empathetic to other cultures, a favorite of mine. We own it when we teach students to recognize the difference between excellence and mediocrity in their own work and in the work of others. We own it when we see that music students learn better than many others about team building, working together, and discipline. We own it when we recognize that music gives students an outlet for self-expression and ultimately boosts their self-confidence and self-esteem. We own it when we hear that the skills that music students learn in music class are the very ones that will eventually help them in the workplace as they become doers, not just observers. Remember China, more honor students than American students? We own it when we see how teaching music helps students overcome fear and anxiety and take calculated risks. And perhaps, and especially, we own it when we realize that music might be the one thing that introduces our students to the impossible, the incomparable, something so much bigger than themselves or anybody else. I have a few more things I want to share with you, but I'm thinking maybe we should stand up and do a little Planet Rock, just to get the wiggles out, just like your kids need, just to move. Planet Rock is the song that we use for Double Dream Hands. If you never heard of it, learn it now. Never too late. Okay, and so, just for a little exercise, to get up. Hey, I'll teach you the dance break first, okay? In case you've never done it, this is your chance. You don't have to go about life never knowing the important things like Double Dream Hands. Take your fist. You can mirror me if you want to. Doesn't matter. I'm taking one fist and going up and across. Up and across, okay? Then you're going to crank it forward, crank it back, crank it forward, like that. And this time you're supposed to stay down like this and look over this direction. Then you take one hand and you turn your chin forward. Oh, sorry, shoulder first. Your shoulder, then your chin. And then you roll your shoulder 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Try that whole thing with me. We go up and across, and up and across, and crank it, stay down, and shoulder, chin, shoulder, 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 pat your legs twice, pat, pat, shoulder, shoulder, and then take both hands behind your head, and that's Double Dream Hands. Now that's the dance break, and every time I yell out dance break, we do that. Let's do it once more, faster, and up, across, and crank, crank, stay down, and shoulder, chin, shoulder, 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 and pat, pat, shoulder, shoulder, Double Dream Hands. That's it. Now, the rest of the song, all you have to do is really follow along with me, okay? It's really easy, and I yell out the instructions. That's half the fun. Here we go on Planet Rock, double D hands. Stand tall. That is more volume.
Fly away with me.
Hands down.
To another galaxy.
And down. Step up.
I'm building a rocket as fast as I can.
One more high.
Blasting off to where
First we can. Now we do a countdown.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off.
Okay, here comes our dance break. Crank it. Stay down. So, two. Shoulder. Double knee hands. Yeah, start like this again.
I'm gonna take you to planet
Put it behind the wall.
rock.
No, crank it like this.
Every day we'll rock the
Double knee hands.
music. That is what we do.
Here comes the dance break.
Planet rock.
Crank it. Stay down. So, chin. Shoulder. Double knee hands. Second verse. Same as the first.
There's room for everyone. Planet
Put it
rock.
behind the wall.
Gonna have some fun.
Crank it.
Every day we'll sing it in our
Double knee hands.
everything goes to
Dance break.
Planet rock.
Stay down. So, chin. Shoulder. Now, here's the bridge. Yeah.
Neptune's
Rain
Jupiter,
hands.
Mars, meteors,
Point over
rings,
there.
shooting stars. Get on rocket, run
Dance
on.
hands again.
Blasting
Do
off,
that again.
blasting off.
Step clap.
Rock.
Hands to knees.
Everybody,
Step clap. Knees to down knees.
gonna fly.
Step clap. Hands to knees. Dance hands. At the beginning.
Planet rock. I'm gonna take you to planet
Right behind low. Crank it.
Every day we'll rock the world.
Double knee hands.
That is what we
Do
do.
the butterfly.
That is what we do.
Double knee hands.
That is what we do.
Freestyle.
Planet rock.
Final pose.
Planet rock.
Hey, you can't make this stuff up. Anyway, the birds and the dogs and everybody else is looking at me like I'm from another planet. So, now that I'm out of breath, and hopefully you are too, a couple of years ago, I think bring this up now because I think it's a perfect opportunity for music educators, actually. I wrote a little book called The Artist Within Me. I know this sounds like a commercial break, but nonetheless, here it is. It's The Artist Within Me. And it really came out of the idea that, when you be a music teacher, you went to the conservatory, you went to the, University of Wisconsin for me, and you came out and you thought you're a singer or a musician, you play some piano or some instrument or something like that. And you thought of yourself as an artist. And at the same time, you had the wherewithal to also become a teacher. So you embraced that challenge as well. And off you went. And so but then you got out and you started teaching. And I think a lot of times you lost that balance, or we became disconnected with that balance of, am I now a teacher or an artist? And I can't do one really well without doing the other. And it became difficult and somewhat discouraging. I mean, I'd find myself, and maybe you did too, going to a concert or to a Broadway show or a recital or something. You look up from the audience, you'd look up on the stage and you'd go, oh, I used to do that. And it was something kind of depressing, as a matter of fact, and could feel very discouraging. And he felt like, okay, I'm a teacher and I'm proud of that. I think it's the greatest profession on the planet. But I also used to be an artist. I think this COVID pandemic time might be a time when we try to get ourselves back in touch with our artistic self, as well as trying to maintain all this with being a teacher in these strange times. So when I wrote this book, it's full of it's 365 one-page chapters, like one for each day of the year. You're supposed to read it, and you can read it in any order. It doesn't really matter. You're just supposed to flip open and read it. And, it's kind of like you're supposed to read your daily devotional that you do every morning, and then you turn to the book of John. Lightning might strike me for that. I don't know. But anyway, I thought they were just, some of them are motivational. Some of them are just examples. Some of them are something, hey, try this. Something to get yourself, again, think about it, back in touch with your artistic self. I take it for granted that you are all wonderful teachers. I've seen it. But with the artistic stuff, maybe we need help just to kind of remind ourselves how we get back in touch with it. So one chapter of the book, I think it was May, because April showers, then May, I wrote about Noah's Ark, the lessons learned from Noah's Ark. And I thought maybe I would share some of that with you today. There's 7 lessons that I think Noah's Ark can teach us about this thing of getting back in touch with your artistic self. So keep that in mind as we kind of go through these a little bit together. And you will not be tested on this. I always say about this book, it's like that John Cage composition, and the orchestra plays it, and when you put that music down, and the directions on top of the music are, begin anywhere. I love that. In fact, I wanted to call the book that, but my publisher wouldn't let me. Anyway, but it is the idea. Just start. Just begin. Pick up a book, whatever. Start these exercises. Because Noah's Ark tells us, lesson number 1 of Noah's Ark is, don't miss the boat. Carpe diem. You don't get left behind. In other words, don't envy your friends, for instance. I have done this. I am as guilty as anybody. You see your friends who go put together a show, or they go perform in a musical theater, even if it's community theater, whatever it is, or they practice a piece that they've always wanted to learn, just to learn it, just to participate in the art. Seize that day and don't envy your friends about it. Just, carpe diem. Life is short. In fact, most of you who are getting older like me, know that not only is it short, it accelerates. It goes faster and faster. And so there's no time to kind of keep thinking, oh, I'll do it next year, if you can possibly get it going. You have to be brave. Noah was. You can't wait. And I don't want to get too preachy about this, but I believe that God, whatever God is to you, believes in us. And I believe that God wants us to be artists and teachers who succeed. I truly believe that, artists and teachers are the ones that can waken the rest of the world to the reality that they are part of something bigger themselves. That's why in that Own It thing I went on about, thinking about the incomparable, the incomprehensible, the impossible with a capital I. That's what we can do. And I think God wants artists and teachers to do that. And I also think he wants you not to miss the boat. Number 2 is, we're all in the same boat. You're not the first teacher to hit the wall. Believe me. And your path might be different than anybody else's, but there really is very little new under the sun. So, it's since we're all in the same boat, you might throw somebody else a lifeline once in a while. When you see that they're struggling with something, or you do. At America Sings, my nonprofit company, which, by the way, next year, May 1st, if they'll let us do it, we're going to be in Washington, D.C. on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. If you can't come, we'll do it virtually. You can join us, americasings.org, May 1st, 2021. Anyway, it's a nonprofit company that I run, and the proceeds go to homeless and disadvantaged kids. I've been doing it for 30-some years. Started with my friends, Matt Kopp, Roger Emerson, Fritz Mountford, many, many more. Anyway, I was at one of those festivals. I think it was in Long Beach, California. And this little kid named Jeremy used to come up and stand by me when I was watching the show, the performances all day. My job is pretty much to stand around and grin and encourage everybody. And Jeremy was this little kid who would stand right next to me every time I was watching a show. Finally, by the end of the day, I was like, I wonder what group this is. And Jeremy looked up and said, well, that's the Westlake High School Show Choir from Westlake, California. I looked down at Jeremy and I said, well, thanks, Jeremy. And he sort of slipped his arm around my waist and looked up at me and said, that's okay, John. That's what friends are for. And you know the kind of kid. It's the kind of kid that the mom always forgets to pick them up till about an hour after you're finished with them. Anyway, it's all. But when we recognize this thing of we're all in the same boat, there are other people around you to help you. Someone to listen to you. Somebody to encourage you or set you straight. So I would encourage you to seek out professionals, be they counselors or colleagues. Be honest with the journey that you're on, but you can't be passive about it. You have to go after the answers. You know, trim the sails, rev the motor, and row. Teaching is about relationships. And so we're commiserators. It's like somewhere around here I've got a poster that my brother gave me when he was in Peace Corps in Africa. And it says on it, if you want to travel fast, travel alone. If you want to travel far, travel together. You know, and I think it is. We do better when we work together. Is that not a lesson for this country? Not to get political, but we do better when we all work together. We have a lot in common. And we as music teachers certainly do. And those of us teaching in this tough time definitely have things in common. We rely on each other, commiserate with you. Everything I do is a commiseration. I know I can't do anything by myself. I need everybody to help me do stuff. But I love that. I love that synthesis of bringing people together and working on a project together. And we can do that as we get back in touch with our artistic self. Number 3, plan ahead. And it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark, right? So it's just about preparation. And concentrate right now maybe on the areas that you feel inadequate. For me, this COVID has been a great time to kind of learn a little bit more about lighting and about using the internet and about doing Zoom conferences or virtual conferences. And I know it has been for all of you too. That's a good thing. But you know, you don't have to beat yourself up about waiting till 20 years before you got back in with your artistic self. Just do it now. You know, if you have to wait a semester, fine. But do it as soon as you can. Change is difficult. But I think Noah would say that not changing is even more difficult. You know, it's starting to sprinkle. You kind of got to get going. Number 4 is don't listen to the critics and the naysayers. You know, for most music teachers, that means stay out of the teacher's lounge. But if Noah had, his entire family would have been drowned if he had listened to other people, right? You have to sort of man up, woman up, artist up, whatever. You're tougher than you think. You know, like my brother, again, back to China, the motto at this very high-end school, I mean, these people are really encouraging their kids that they go to Harvard and Yale and Stanford, and it's a lot of high pressure. In fact, the motto of the school is, have the courage to live your dreams. Or as some of the faculty would say, have the courage to live your parents' dreams. Which I think is maybe somewhat accurate. But you can't be too easily bruised. You know, there are going to be critics and naysayers. Let them naysay. You do your own thing. You know, like that kid who said to me, you know, why would I want to do that? That could deflate you just like that as a teacher. But you have a right to pursue happiness. There's nothing I believe more than that. For America and for the world, you and everybody has the right to pursue happiness, not at the expense of anybody else. But you have that right. Embrace it. Pursue it. No matter what. And you know the difference between a critic who really wants you to do better and a naysayer who just is a Debbie Downer on everything. And stay away from that, is what I would say. And listen to your friends who you know they want you to succeed. Listen to that. That makes sense. And you'll go far and better, I believe. Number 5 is, for safety's sake, travel in pairs. You know, that kind of goes back to what we've already been talking about, but travel along with fellow artists. We are different. There's no getting around it, you know. And don't be a naysayer yourself. When you see somebody else going through this struggle or this process and trying to, you know, you be the encourager. One example I use with kids all the time is, it's so easy to be somebody's friend when everything is going wrong with that friend's life. You know, you can let them cry on your shoulder and be the best friend in the whole wide world. But what kind of friend are you when everything's going right with that person and you're struggling? I think this is a great example for kids when they're doing like auditioning for solos or want to be the lead in the musical or don't understand why they're not in the front row. They don't understand why this person seems to get all the breaks. Well, you know, again, it's easy to be, what kind of friend are you when things are going right for them and not right for you? And I think that goes for us as teachers and fellow artists too. A real friend is happy there for their friend's success. And, you know, that's what it means to be a real friend. What kind of friend are you? To yourself, to other peers, to your other artists, you know. Another thing is that art is not something you're supposed to conquer. It's supposed to be something that you love. And as busy as life is, there's always room for love. The thing is, the animals getting on the ark, they always traveled with it in pairs. You find somebody who collaborates with you, who feels about the same way about this daring adventure you're upon. Not a crutch, not somebody who just fills in the gaps of the things you're not very good at, but somebody who truly boosts each other up and encourages each other. I just read this morning in a paper about the guy from Dan Levy from Schitt's Creek. And he won the Emmy Award this year. And he wants to learn more about he's from Canada. He wants to learn more about the Indigenous people of Canada. So he signed up for an online course during this COVID business of learning about Indigenous people and their struggles and issues in history in Canada. He puts it out on Facebook and says, hey, why don't some other people do that? Yesterday, 64,000 people signed up for that class. That's finding collaborators to work together towards something new and beautiful and positive. Okay, I'm almost done. Number 6. Oh, remember, the Ark was built by amateurs. The Titanic was built by professionals. You know, feel your power. There's always going to be somebody better than you, you know, and don't wait for some expert to give you validity. If you're practicing art, you're an artist. It doesn't matter if it never gets past the refrigerator. Oh, my refrigerator is actually gone. But if you actually get past the refrigerator door, if you're doing art, you're an artist. If you're practicing teaching, you're a teacher. No apologies necessary. You're doing it. So give yourself some credit. You're so qualified. Nobody in any other profession on this planet is as qualified as a music teacher to do what you do. No, none of them, no brain surgeons or rocket scientists were sitting on the piano bench at 3 or looking through a microscope at 2. Well, maybe they were, but not very many. Not very many people get out of college as trained with as many years of experience as you do. You are so qualified, and that makes you so powerful. You know, so just if you want to do art, just do it. Sit down and write it or something. Play it. You know, it doesn't matter if your art isn't any good. Just do it. And I always say to my America Sings kids, you may never get rich being an artist, just like you may never get rich being a teacher. But you have this power, and with that power, you will never be poor. You can change the world every day. Number 7, the final one, I promise, and I'll wrap it up here. Build your future on higher ground. You know, let goodness be your goal. Use your art and your teaching to create light rather than darkness, unity rather than division, hope rather than despair. Teach your students to look up, not down, because truth with a capital T is always up. Be forgiving of yourself and others. Artists, you see, and teachers are welcome on higher ground because we built it, and we continue to build it every day. So I guess what I'm saying is, make yourself worthy to be called an artist. In the same way you make yourself worthy to be a teacher. Thank you for sharing this 47 minutes with me. I am pleased to call you my peers, and I am grateful for what you do every single day. I can't wait till we get back in the same room together. In the meantime, eat well, sleep well, laugh easily, and may all your double dreams come true.